enormous potential, but the city has been languishing for decades. Many books have been written dealing with the economics of cities, setting the conditions to allow for the growth of a city, explaining how local pedestrian traffic can offer a measure of safety in cities, and much more. The job of mayor requires more skills and training than being a good citizen, a politician, or a lawyer. It requires training in economic development, city planning, and much more. For example, crime in New Bedford is a problem, but the solution lies not only with the police. K-12 education is a problem in New Bedford, but the solution lies not only with the system. This reader would like to know how you have prepared for the job of leading this city. In particular, he wants to know, what have you read and who have you consulted with in preparation for the many tasks that you must take on as mayor of New Bedford? And we will start with Mayor Mitchell in this round.
Well, I think the simple answer to that question is I've been doing the job effectively for 4 years. This job requires a willingness to learn, and it requires one to be a very quick study, because there's no training manual to be the mayor of the city. So that's what we've done. We've worked very, very hard in getting up to speed as quickly as we could when we got into office. My team, that is, and I surrounded myself with a very strong team and across the board. In the mayor's office, we hired great department heads, some from outside the city, some who were promoted up, some who stayed on from the previous administration. But it is a very talented team, and you'll be hard-pressed to find a more talented team in a city of similar size anywhere in America. And that's why, one of the great reasons why we've had so much success. Pick the topic, and as I said in my opening, the city has grown 3,000 jobs since I got into office, which is a historic amount. We have been firing on all cylinders, and just in the last week, we've had a couple of more new expansions that have come onto our radar screen. We've had expansions in the industrial park. Our manufacturing base is rapidly growing. Our port is rapidly growing, and we're taking advantage of a lot of the planning and promotion that we've done. Cargo doubled in the last year from 18,000 tons to 43,000 tons. Recreational boating grew very rapidly, and our fishing industry, especially on the scallop side, has stabilized and is growing very rapidly. This doesn't happen. None of this happens unless people think, businesses think, that things are going in the right direction, and that's because they have confidence. They know that that the city has its act together, that city government is doing everything it can to advance the interests of the city, whether it's in achieving the highest bond rating in city history, whether it's in making the long deferred decisions in the school system, or managing the finance as well.
Thank you, and now I'll repeat the question. New Bedford has enormous potential, but the city has been languishing for decades. The job of mayor requires more skills and training than being a good citizen, a politician, or a lawyer. The reader would like to know how you have prepared for the job of leading this city. In particular, what have you read and who have you consulted with in preparation for the many tasks you must take on as mayor of New Bedford?
Well, luckily for me, I've always thought New Bedford, as we all do, is a great city. There's always been a potential here. And for many reasons, we've never reached that potential. What I bring is the experience that I've had for almost 30 years in working for our government. I've also have a close group of friends and family members and other people who work for the city to help me maneuver what my job will be as mayor. It's not an easy job, and nobody is saying that it is. But what is lacking is leadership, and leadership where you sit down with all the different neighborhood communities, you sit down with police officers and firefighters, you sit down with the city council and school committee, and you figure out what the city needs and what is best for it. I've always believed that New Bedford has the best potential of any city in this state because of where we're located. We have a harbor with great fishermen that unfortunately are being regulated to death by the federal government. And again, there's no leadership from the mayor's office on that. We have our rail system that we could use. I mean, people have talked for 30 years about getting the train down here. Well, there's no movement on that. And I know that I can work with the governor and the state legislature to make sure that that happens. We have an airport and we have highways. So the potential is there to bring many businesses to the city. The mayor just talks about 3,000 jobs. Well, where are they? The one thing that people tell me over and over again, and the reason why many companies are leaving, is very high taxes, both on residential and business property. So we can do better, ladies and gentlemen, and that's my job, is to lead and work with everyone. Thank you.
Okay, and so now we will move after the 2-minute responses. Each candidate will have 1 minute for a rebuttal, and we'll start with Mayor Mitchell.
Okay, well, so when you're a long time on Capitol Hill, you probably remember Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who said that famously that you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your own set of facts. And the reality is, we're hearing from my opponent a bald set of assertions, one after another. No leadership, no this, no that. On fishing, let me just address that briefly. So I beg to differ, but don't believe me. Don't believe me. Ask any of the leadership in the fishing community. Ask Richie Canastra, Roy Enixon, Jimmy Kendall, on down the line of the work that I've done on things like the Habitat Amendment and the Observer Program, and on and on and on. When it comes to jobs, yeah, there are 3,000 more jobs in the city, and they're all over the place. Go ask Tony Sapienza, or Henry Wayne, or Dave Spoots, who's in the audience. They've hired people. Ask the businesses like the Black Whale on the waterfront that hired people hand over fist last year when we helped them open up. The list goes on and on. Judge the record for yourself.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Giesta will have a
Well,
minute.
as I've stated before, Joseph Abood and Sid Wainer created those jobs. And speaking of the Black Whale, I know for a fact that you did not want the Black Whale down there and gave the owners a really hard time about opening up. So it's about opening up and discussing things with people. It's about leadership, and clearly you haven't demonstrated that. There are many people in this city who are still looking for work, and there isn't anything out there. So, and in the fishing industry, speak to the fishermen. Why are there so many boats still docked on the waterfront that are not going out? So let's talk to the people of the city. Businesses are leaving, going to Dartmouth and Acushnet and Fairhaven. Residents are leaving here. Our tax base is dying. And if we don't do something soon, we're not going to have anybody in the city.